I've worked at White Wolf since the May of '05, where I got hired to be the organized play coordinator for Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, the CCG based on Vampire the Masquerade. After working for White Wolf for about a year and a half or so, White Wolf merged with CCP, the makers of EVE Online. And for the last 2 years or so, I've been in the marketing department doing advertising for EVE Online. So that's been pretty exciting. So I get to travel a lot for work, come to conventions, and get to meet nice people like you, and put on presentations every once in a while. And Tracon was nice enough to give me an hour to talk about whatever I wanted. So I thought we'd talk about an interesting subject. The title is a little boring. It's people in and around games, but what that really means, and what I'd like to talk about today, is most of the games that we play with other people, whether we play with teammates or enemies, or even when you play single-player games, there are still communities around these games that we're playing. So the first thing I want to show you is what people look like. So these are people. This is CCP's, we did a company retreat recently. We all went down to Mexico. So this is everyone that managed to be able to come to the trip from our offices in Atlanta, Georgia, Reykjavik, Iceland, where the headquarters is, Shanghai, and we have a small studio in Newcastle, UK now. And let's see if this works here, but I'm somewhere in this, that's actually me right there. But that'll give you some idea of how big CCP has become, and what kind of different gamers we have. We have people that play all sorts of games, people that played only video games before. We've got a lot of LARPers, a lot of tabletop kids. I'm a CCG player myself, stuff like that. So, the first thing we want to look at is people as players, right? The participants in the games that we're playing. So there's gamers and there's gamers. There's a couple of divisions, right? There's players as allies, and we'll have a slide on that. Players as enablers or stepping stones. Players as enemies, and then players as all of the above. I'd like, we have kind of a small group here. I'd like anybody that has questions along the way to speak up and ask, and we make it conversational, and we can have it pretty intimate here. So step in whenever you like to here. So the first thing we talk about is players as allies. Players as allies is a notion that is typical in most tabletop role-playing games. You have a group that you work together with to complete some goal. So I use World of Darkness as an example, where you have a game like World of Darkness, where you get people together. It's a storytelling game, so there's a kind of joint narrative that you participate in. The storyteller that begins the game basically gives you the settings and the rules and kind of the layout of what your evening is going to look like. And it's up to the players to work together to complete the goals, or to tell their story. Especially in World of Darkness, we talk about telling stories, but it's not just about a game, it's not just about rolling dice, but it's about narrative and why, being a vampire is interesting, and what kind of story you can tell from there. Can anybody give me other examples of, outside of like maybe tabletop role-playing games where you have the other players as allies?
EVE Online will be crap.
The EVE Online is an interesting, EVE Online is an interesting game because it does a couple things, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But there's a lot of games that you might jump on a team and play with, whether it be like RVR and some of the massive multiplayer online games, or joining, like, pick up team deathmatches and VTES and stuff like that. But most directly, these are people that you may or may not know beforehand. You work together to complete some goal, right? That's why those people are necessary in these games. The next topic is people as enablers. And I don't know if any of you have played Farmville on like see all the news stories in your news feed about people who want you to come and give them a piece of fence or buy them a cow or whatever. But Farmville is actually interesting in that the people that you play with don't necessarily give you anything to start, right, or by default, or you don't necessarily work with them together as you would a team and in like Team Fortress or in a group as you would in a role-playing game system. In Farmville, you would use every day you can help people just a little bit, but not inside of kind of a concerted team fashion. You want neighbors to come be your neighbors so you can expand your farm. So it's just getting more people to play the game so that you can play more of your game. So as an enabler or as a stepping stone. And that's actually a really smart game design decision on Zynga's part. Zynga makes Farmville because they use the game mechanic for you to increase your game for them to increase their install base. So from a marketing aspect, I think it's a really interesting idea. And it seems sinister, right, to have people be your mercenary like that, but at the same time, I played Farmville for a little while because I wanted to see what the game was all about and explore this mechanic. And I found it interesting that some people that actually enjoy playing Farmville wanted to be your neighbor. Like they would come and they would, some of the things you can do is like fertilize on people's farms, and so like your stuff grows faster and you have a higher yield and stuff like that. But there's still people that enjoy it, and they don't mind being a stepping stone for you because you're a stepping stone for them. Next is players as enemies, right? For those of you who have played Vampire the Eternal Struggle, the card game, it's a multiplayer game where you play with 3 or 4 other people at a table, and everyone at the table is your enemy. The object of the game is to, in order, remove the person to your left and go all the way around the table. So at any point in time, any one person on the table can be your enemy, but you do it in order. So we call that a predator-prey relationship. So this is kind of the dynamics of what the table looks like. You have player 1 through 5, everyone takes their turn. If the first player is very aggressive against their first prey, then they're weak against their prey, and then their prey is strong, and their prey is weak, and so on and so forth. So that's an explanation of that predator-prey relationship. And then on the right is another illustration of a predator-prey relationship. So the notion of people as enemies, right? I mean, people are the most difficult villains in any game you play, right? Because it's better than any AI, it's better than any game designer could possibly do and implement into a game. People are smart, especially in games where in Vampire the Eternal Struggle, where people can talk to you and convince you to do things. That's hard to, it's a difficult skill to bring to the table. Not everyone has the skills to sit down and, convince you to give them all your stuff because, it's in your best interest to do so. So people are the most dangerous as enemies. So then we get to players as everything, or players as all of the above. The example I'm going to cite is EVE Online. EVE, there's 340 some odd thousand people playing EVE right now. At any point in time, you have anywhere between 40,000 to 60,000 people in the universe at the same time, flying around in ships, participating in the market, talking in the local chat room, and a bunch of other stuff, doing, production lines and building things and doing planetary interaction now, which is the latest expansion we released. And the things that we talked about before, all of that stuff exists in EVE. A player is an ally. It's in your best interest to join a corporation, and then corporations, it's in their best interest to join an alliance, where you get together with a lot of people and then complete some goal. Good question.
It is not always corporation best intention to join the alliance. We are independent corporation,
right?
In Providence.
Yeah.
So in the most basic sense, joining a corporation gives you access to more people to to work with and complete your goals. Being an alliance gives you more access. But we go back to the fact that players can be enemies as well, especially in EVE Online when you can't trust anyone, like even probably your closest, friend in your corporation or alliance. Which is why a corporation might not want to join an alliance. They're big enough to where they can complete their goals without joining an alliance and having to trust other people becomes a big security issue. But that exists in EVE where people that are out in the world can be your enemies. And then people as enablers as well. When you play with, when you're in possibly a smaller corporation that's not an alliance, you might not have all the capabilities in your corporation to do all the production lines or have all the PvP assets you need or have all the skill base to do planetary interaction or mining of moons and things like that to get the minerals and the resources you need. So you have to reach out to other people and maybe pay them a little bit of money so that they start erecting your player-owned stations for you, or they mine moons so that they you get some of these the reactions that you need from them to build some of the things that you want. So players as enablers and players as stepping stones exist in the game as well. EVE is a big, complicated game, and the reason that it's so great, especially at the highest levels, is that everybody else every other thing you see in the game, for the most part, is either a person in real life or it was made by someone in the game. So this player-generated content is important, and you'll find that a lot of other massive multiplayer online games lack complex, high-level content. I mean, you can go into World of Warcraft and you can raid a monster, and you can raid that monster every day with your friends if you want, but the content for EVE at the highest levels constantly changes, and it's not the developers creating those situations. We just give you the tools, and as the player is going and either conquering territories in low security space or committing the biggest acts of fraud and scams in EVE Online. So that's why EVE is interesting. It's the people. And here's some more pictures and a brief description for you. So, we talk about the territory control in EVE. This is just a map circa 2000.